Imagine it is 3 in the morning. The library is dead silent, except for the hum of the vending machine in the hallway. You have 3 empty energy drink cans stacked like a tower on your desk. Your eyes are burning. The words on the page are starting to swim, and you have exactly 5 hours until the most important exam of your life. We've all been there. It is a universal rite of passage. But did you know that the way we describe this panic, the specific words we use to talk about this stress, actually reveals a hidden history that goes back hundreds of years? Today, we are not just teaching you vocabulary, we are uncovering the secret life of university language.
It is amazing how much history is packed into just a few casual sentences we throw around in the dorms. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another deep dive episode of Leo and Emma English.
I am Emma.
And I am Leo. We are thrilled to have you here. As many of our regular listeners know, on this channel, we usually focus on natural English to help you reach that confident B2 or C1 level. But today, we are doing something a little different. We are taking a standard topic, university slang, and we are going to deconstruct it.
That is right. We aren't just going to give you a list of words to memorize. We want to explore why students speak the way they do. We are going to look at the etymology, the origins of these words, some of which go back to ancient Greece and medieval monks. And we are going to look at the science behind some of the study habits these words describe.
Exactly. University life has its own distinct dialect. Sociolinguists actually study this. They view university campuses as high-density networks where language evolves incredibly fast because you have thousands of people from different backgrounds living in close quarters. If you only use textbook English on a campus, not only will you sound formal, but you might also miss the rich cultural context of what is happening around you.
So, Leo, let's start with the scenario I painted in the introduction, that 3 a.m. panic. In casual English, we have a very specific verb for the act of trying to learn a massive amount of information in a very short time. We call it cramming.
Cramming. It is such a visceral word. To cram literally means to force a lot of things into a small space, like if you were packing a suitcase and it won't close, so you shove or cram one last sweater in there. When we apply that to studying, the image is that you are physically forcing facts into your brain, even if there isn't any room left.
And the tragedy, of course, is that it usually doesn't work. We have this idea that we can hit the books, another great idiom, meaning to start studying aggressively, at the last minute and succeed. But the science tells us a different story. I was reading a study recently published by the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, which analyzed this exact behavior.
Oh, this is the study about all-nighters, right? Pulling an all-nighter is the term we use when you stay awake all night to study. It is worn almost like a badge of honor by students.
Precisely. But scientifically, it is a disaster. The study found that sleep is essential for memory consolidation. Basically, when you learn something, it sits in a temporary storage area of the brain called the hippocampus, but it only moves to long-term storage in the prefrontal cortex while you sleep. So if you pull an all-nighter to cram, you are filling up the temporary storage, but you are never hitting the save button.
That is a perfect analogy. You are typing a 10-page essay and then pulling the plug on the computer before saving the file. So when students say they are going to pull an all-nighter to ace the exam, they are actually biologically sabotaging themselves. By the way, to ace is one of those wonderfully positive slang terms. It means to get a perfect score, an A grade. It comes from playing cards, the ace being the highest card.
On the flip side, if the all-nighter fails, you might flunk the exam. Flunk is such a harsh-sounding word, isn't it? It just sounds like failure. It's a very informal way to say you failed. But the origin of flunk is actually a bit of a mystery. Some etymologists believe it appeared in American college slang around the 1820s. There is a theory that it is a blend of 2 other words, flinch, meaning to pull back in fear, and funk, which was 18th century Oxford slang for a state of panic or fear.
I love that. So flunking isn't just failing. It implies a panic, a flinching away from the challenge. It adds this psychological layer to the failure. It is also interesting you mentioned Oxford there, because a lot of American university terminology, which dominates global media, actually has its roots in the British university system, specifically Oxford and Cambridge.
That leads us perfectly to the names we use for students in different years. In the US, it is a very rigid system. You are a freshman, then a sophomore, then a junior, then a senior. If you watch American movies, you hear these terms constantly, but most people don't realize how bizarre the word sophomore actually is.
It is a fantastic word. If you break it down to its Greek roots, it is a combination of two opposing ideas. You have sophos, which means wise. Think of philosophy, the love of wisdom. And then you have moros, which means foolish or dull, which is actually where we get the word moron.
So a sophomore is literally a wise fool.
Exactly. And culturally, it is so accurate. A second-year student knows enough to think they are wise. They know where the library is, they know how to sign up for classes, but they don't know enough to realize how much they still have to learn. They are wise fools. It is a joke that has been hidden in plain sight for centuries.
And freshman is much more straightforward. Literally a fresh man, a newcomer. In the UK, however, we generally don't use the sophomore, junior, senior system. We tend to say first year, second year, third year. But we do have the term fresher. In Britain, the first week of university is called Freshers' Week, which is usually famous for not involving very much studying at all.
Right. Freshers' Week is mostly about socializing, which brings us to another crucial distinction. If you are an international student, mixing up UK and US slang can actually get you into some embarrassing situations. We need to talk about the word pants.
Oh, absolutely. This is the classic warning for any learner. In American English, pants refers to trousers, jeans, slacks, what you wear on your legs. But in British English, pants refers to underwear. So if a student in London says, "I spilled coffee on my pants," everyone is going to be very confused and possibly scandalized.
And the reverse is true for the word rubber. In the UK, a rubber is an eraser, the thing you use to remove pencil marks. In the US, rubber is a slang term for a condom. So if you were sitting in a lecture hall in New York and you loudly ask your neighbor, "Can I borrow a rubber?" you are going to get some very strange looks.
It really shows that even within the same language, the campus dialect can shift dramatically across the ocean. Let's talk about where these students live, because that is another area rich in history. In the US, students live in dorms.
Dorm is short for dormitory. This word comes directly from the Latin dormitorium, which simply means a sleeping place. But originally, it wasn't about students. It referred to the sleeping quarters in monasteries. Monks slept in dormitories long before college students did.
I think there is a nice poetic connection there. Medieval monks lived in a community, ate together, studied ancient texts, and slept in a shared room. Modern university students live in a community, eat together, study, hopefully, and sleep in shared rooms. The structure of the university is really inherited from the structure of the monastery. But in the UK, we rarely say dorm. We usually say halls of residence or just halls.
So you would say, "I'm going back to halls."
Exactly. I'm heading back to halls. It sounds a bit grander, doesn't it? Like you were living in a palace.
It does. Now, I want to pivot to something a bit more modern. We have talked about Latin and Greek roots, but language on campus is also being driven by technology and the internet. We are seeing a new wave of slang that enters the university from social media. Words like lit or fam or saying something is fire.
That is a great point. This is what linguists call bottom-up language creation. In the past, terms like sophomore were imposed from the top down by the university administration. But words like ditch, meaning to skip class, or chill, come from the students themselves. Ditch is interesting. It implies abandoning something, like leaving a car in a ditch. When you ditch class, you are abandoning your responsibility.
I have definitely ditched a few classes in my time, usually to hang out with friends. Hang out is the ultimate neutral verb of university life. You don't attend a gathering, you don't visit, you hang out. It implies a lack of structure, and I think that is why students love it. Their lives are so structured by class schedules and deadlines that their free time needs to be defined by a total lack of structure. Hanging out has no goal. It just is.
That is a fascinating sociological take. The slang reflects the psychological needs of the speaker. We use chill and hang out because we are desperate for relaxation. We use violent metaphors like hit the books or killer exam because the academic pressure feels like a battle. The language mirrors the experience.
And then you have the hierarchy of teachers. We mentioned prof in the intro. Prof is obviously short for professor. But notice how we almost never use titles in slang. We don't say the doctor or the lecturer in casual chat. We shorten everything. Pol Sci for political science, psych for psychology, lab for laboratory. This is what linguists call the principle of least effort.
The principle of least effort? Is that just a fancy way of saying students are lazy?
Not lazy, efficient. When you share a lot of context with someone, like other students in your major, you don't need to use full sentences or full words. You can compress the language. If I say, I have a psych lab in the dorms, I have compressed 3 complex concepts into monosyllables, and you understand me perfectly. It creates an in-group feeling. If you understand the code, you belong to the tribe.
That is key. Slang is about belonging. Using the word freshman or sophomore correctly signals that you are part of the system. It is why international students often feel so relieved when they master these terms. It is not just about vocabulary, it is about identity. You stop feeling like an outsider looking in, and you start feeling like a member of the community.
Let's try to apply this in-group language in a practical example, like we did in the sample, but let's make it a bit more complex. Let's say we are 2 seniors, 4th-year students, discussing our thesis. A thesis is that massive final paper you have to write.
Okay, set the scene.
We are in the campus coffee shop. It is crowded. We are both running on caffeine.
Got it. Leo, honestly, I am hitting a wall with my thesis. I tried to pull an all-nighter to get the methodology section done, but I just ended up scrolling social media for 3 hours.
I feel you. I have been living in the library for 3 days. My advisor, my prof, is tearing my draft apart. He said my arguments were sophomoric, which was a brutal insult.
Ouch. Sophomoric. That means he thinks your work is immature or overconfident, but ill-informed. That is the wise fool coming back to haunt you.
Exactly. I wanted to ditch our meeting, but I knew I couldn't. If I flunk this thesis, I don't graduate. I'm just hoping I can cram enough research in this weekend to salvage a passing grade. I don't even need to ace it anymore. I just want to survive.
We should probably stop cramming and just hang out for a bit. Maybe go to the quad? The fresh air might help reset your hippocampus so you can actually retain some info.
The quad, we haven't defined that yet. The quad is short for quadrangle. It's that rectangular green space in the middle of campus buildings. It's the classic movie setting for students throwing frisbees.
Oh, okay, scene break. But you see how natural that felt? We used hitting a wall, which means getting stuck. We used sophomic as a critique. We referenced the quad. This is the texture of real university dialogue.
And notice the emotional arc there. It went from stress to shared commiseration, complaining together, to a solution. That is what slang does. It bonds people together through shared struggle.
Before we wrap up, I want to touch on one last concept that is vital for our B2 and C1 listeners. It is the idea of register. We've been talking about slang, which is an informal register, but university is a place where you have to code switch constantly. You speak one way to your roommate in the dorms and a completely different way to your professor in a seminar.
Code switching is huge. If you email your professor and say, hey, I'm going to ditch class because I'm cramming, that is a disaster. You have to shift registers. You would say, dear professor, I apologize, but I will be absent from today's lecture due to urgent academic preparation. The meaning is the same, but the vocabulary signals respect and professionalism.
That is the ultimate test of fluency. It isn't just knowing the slang words, it is knowing when to use them and when to lock them away. Flunk is for your friends. Fail, or receive a non-passing grade, is for the administration.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today. We went from the medieval monks and their dormitories to the Greek wise fools. We looked at the neuroscience of sleep deprivation and why cramming is a biological trap. And we navigated the dangerous waters of British versus American trousers.
We certainly did. If you are a student right now, or if you are planning to study abroad, try to listen to the language around you with fresh ears. Don't just hear the words, hear the history and the psychology behind them. When you hear someone say they are stressed, ask yourself, are they flunking, cramming, or just needing to chill?
And for our listeners practicing their English, here is a challenge. In the comments, or just in your notebook, write a short story about a university experience using 3 of the words we discussed today. Maybe you pulled an all-nighter. Maybe you were a confused freshman. Use the vocabulary to tell your story.
We love reading your stories. It is the best way to practice your writing and your natural English at the same time. Remember, language is a living thing. It grows, it changes, and it lives in the conversations we have every day.
Thank you so much for listening to this deep dive on Leo and Emma English. We hope you feel a little bit wiser, and hopefully not foolish, after today's episode. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss a lesson.
Keep practicing, keep listening, and stay curious. We will see you in the next episode. Bye, everyone.